A lot of you love the SEC, a lot more of you hate the SEC. What happens? What if the SEC just cannibalizes itself this year? I know if you look at the odds right now, you got teams like Georgia, Texas, they're way up there, and odds to win the national championship. And hey, maybe they will. But what happens if it doesn't go the way people are thinking? What happens, in other words, if 10-2 or 11-2 is the best the SEC gives you? That's their champ, 11-2. That's counting the SEC championship game win. And then behind that team is just a bunch of three-loss mess. And you're looking at it and you're saying, I can't tell if it's just a bunch of above-average teams or it was a bunch of really good teams and they just beat up on each other. And then the committee's looking around saying, well, we don't know either. What happens? This is a really big question because it's a really big litmus test because this is the first year of the expanded playoff. Therefore, it's the first year we're going to find out how that committee acts. I've been banging this drum for like months now. The big unknown in every corner of the college football industry is how is that college football playoff committee going to judge some random 9-3 SEC team? And how much strength of schedule will matter, strength of record, strength of schedule, how quality losses. Some people don't even believe that should be a phrase. And other people think it should absolutely matter. So 50,000 feet, in other words, where we're sitting right now, and you're not in the season yet, it's so easy to say this stuff. It's so easy to say, oh, a 9-3 Missouri would get in. Oh, a 9-3 Florida absolutely would get in. Oh, a 10-2 Alabama, even if they don't play in Atlanta, they would get in. It's easy to say that stuff now. But you're absent every bit of context. You're also absent knowing, okay, well, what happens in the rest of the country this year? Like if every other conference devours itself, okay, yeah, you're probably right about that. But what if the Big Ten has like 3 or 4 quality teams? The Big 12 somehow pumps out 2 of them. I'm going to give you a G5 scenario in just a second that would blow minds from coast to coast. What if there isn't just infinite amounts of seats at the table for every one of these mid to upper tier SEC teams? This will shape the SEC stance moving forward. And what I mean is right now, we're in kind of a trial period. If you think about it, Big Ten and SEC, we're in kind of a trial period where they're trying to figure out, we expanded this thing so we could get more teams in. That's their stance, whether they tell you that or not. They expanded this thing, they signed off on it so they get more teams in. They did not sign off on expanding this playoff so you could have a better shot in the Big 12 or so you in the ACC could have a better shot. If it ends up being that you are treated as you are what your record says you are, they're not going to be for it. And they may well develop the attitude of taking their ball and going and playing in their own sandbox that they build for themselves. However you feel about that is however you feel about that. But this year, and the protocols that are in place and exercise this year are going to go a long way. I expect in the end, there will be a couple of quality SEC teams left out because of record, and it's going to have some people up in arms. And then you're going to say to yourself, remember once upon a time when we had a 4-team playoff, and then we expanded to 12, and the first talking point was, hey, well, at least there won't be any debate anymore. Because if you can't make a 12-team playoff, then you absolutely void yourself from being able to debate because it used to just be 4 teams. Yeah, that never actually works out that way. They say it in basketball, every 5 minutes when they expand that postseason. You can't make 64-team, 68-team fields. You don't deserve to be in. And yet there they are debating it. Every single selection Sunday. It'll be no different here. Next what if? And it's kind of along the same lines. I just openly wonder how this playoff committee is going to act here. What if we have 2 undefeated G5 teams? I know we got to have one by the college football playoff's own criteria. We're going to have one G5 team in the playoff already. But what if things don't go according to script? The script usually has one G5 team that stands out above the crowd. Well, what if we have 2 of them? Are we ready to have this conversation? Now think about this in the context of the SEC, maybe having some 3-loss teams that you think are pretty high quality, but they play tough schedules, and then you got an undefeated Liberty or an undefeated Memphis or Boise State. So right now, Liberty is favored to win Conference USA over at FanDuel, and they do not have a Power 4 team on their schedule this year. They open against Campbell, whose mascot is a camel, just FYI. I mean, there is no camel on Florida's schedule, I can promise you that. They don't have a P4. So Liberty could very well be one of these teams sitting there undefeated. Memphis is favored to win the AAC. Boise's favored to win the Mountain West. Now, Boise plays at Oregon. Memphis plays at Florida State. Tulane, who's going to be way up there, they play Kansas State. They play at Oklahoma. UTSA will have a quality team this year. They play at Texas. So there are big-time tests on the Power Four front for all the others. Liberty doesn't have one. But you can either think of those as eliminators, or you can, in other words, say, well, as long as they have to play one of the big boys will take care of them. But what if they don't? Because you know as well as I do, even if you're the staunchest defender of G5 teams, you know they're not held to the same standard as modern-day P4 is. And what I mean is I've got like UTSA plays at Texas this year. If they win that game, that will be the evidence that is presented on their resume at the end of the year. If they go undefeated and it includes a win over Texas, there will be no question in people's minds. They will say they beat Texas and they are undefeated. And at the same time, if Ole Miss played a schedule that included at Texas and then a bunch of relative tomato cans, you would hate on them for an inferior strength of schedule because you hold the Power Four team subconsciously to a different standard. Anyway, you're not on the committee. I'm not on the committee. But the folks on the committee are on the committee. How are they going to handle that? Are they going to put two G5 teams in? If we come to the end of the road and two of them are undefeated, are they going to put them in? Because again, I tell you, friends, you may not like it, but I am here to filter the message from the powers that be out there. And it's my job to wear this white T-shirt 3 days a week and to tell you what the real deal is. And what the real deal is, they expanded the playoff. They sold you on expanding it because there would be more access and more inclusion. Of course they lied to you. They expanded it so they would have more seats at the table, so they could cash bigger checks. That was all it was ever about. They found an ATM, they named it a college football playoff, and they wanted to make it as big for themselves as they could. And somewhere along the lines, they fooled a lot of people into clapping like seals for them and doing their PR work for them by fooling you into thinking, oh, don't worry, when we expand it, you'll all have a shot. The moment that more than one G5 teams get in this thing, there will be changes to the system. There will be changes. You think I'm the one who sits here and hates on the G5. I'm just shooting you straight. There will be changes to that system if that happens. Will it happen this year? And another what if. Let's go to the Big Ten for a second. Michigan wins the national championship last year. J.J. McCarthy has a kind of a strange-looking stat line as it relates to national title-winning quarterbacks. More on that in a second. Well, what if Michigan gets high-level quarterback play this year? If you answer yes, if you affirmatively answer just that, will they have high-level quarterback play? Yes, like Alex Orji will be a high-level quarterback this year. They could win the national championship again, is the short answer. They will possibly win the Big Ten, and even if they don't, they are an at-large team, no doubt, slam dunk in the college football playoff, if nothing else is answered but quarterback. So I look at that, and I ask myself, Michigan's a little bit different. What do I need? What qualifies as high-level quarterback play for them? So J.J. McCarthy last year, they go undefeated, wire to wire, and he is a national championship winning quarterback, 74% completion guy last year, 19-4, TD to INT, threw for a little over 2,600 yards. Those numbers certainly would be more than good enough if Alex Orji did nothing more than give me that and was, of course, the threat on the ground, the threat with his legs that JJ was. But more importantly, if he has any kind of command of the offense in the locker room near to the degree that J.J. McCarthy had, and their offensive line is legit, defense is going to take care of itself up there. Their run game will be there. Like, those elements are not going anywhere. Those, to me, are now staples of Michigan football. If they were to get that, I mean, if it's almost a cherry on top that you say, wow, quarterback play, way better than we thought it would be this year. If they've got that, they've got a shot to win it all again. I don't think it's expected that they'll be anywhere close to that. I think if you exclude Michigan fans, right, and you take the rest of the country, a random Oklahoma State fan who lives in the greater Tulsa area probably thinks about Michigan and they say, it was good that they made their run. Okay, they won 3 in a row against Ohio State. They had that once-in-a-lifetime season last year. Good for them. They'll come back to earth this year. There's no way that they'll duplicate that. That's just what most people think. So if all of a sudden you turn on Michigan and, wow, that defense is still stout, which you absolutely shouldn't be fooled by when you see that happen. But also, wow, that quarterback, who is he? What's his name? Wow, that's just more of the same. If that were to happen, somehow, some way, I think the reigning national champs could take the country by surprise. Now, that's a gigantic if. That's why it's called a what if. But Michigan right now got the fourth best odds to win the Big Ten, and they're going to be right in the mix. They play Texas week 2. They play Texas in Ann Arbor. I think it's week 2. Yeah, I think it's week 2. What an environment. What a helmet game that is, by the way. Texas on the road at Michigan. Beautiful.